Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so excited that you are part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. Thank you so much for taking care of those kids, for staying home and helping to flatten down the curve. We're going to get through this together, and it's going to be wonderful. Our guest today is Lauren Mosbach. She is an author, and she's also a counselor, and she's here today to talk to us about My Sister's Super Skills. You know, one of the ways so many families are dealing with this quarantine is by reading with their kids. And you know, what could be more fun than reading a book that has 6 cranky relatives, 3 mean dinosaurs, and 1 very cranky Tyrannosaurus. Of course, we're talking about the last surviving dinosaur, the Tyrannosaurus, written by Stephen Joseph and playfully illustrated by Andy Case. This is a wonderful book that is so much fun to read aloud to your kids, or for your kids to read aloud to you. I told you the story of a young woman that I met at the Chicago Kids Expo. She told me she's 11 or 12 years old. She told me she hated reading. I asked her to just take a look at the Tyrannosaurus. She started laughing. She had a lot of fun, and she said she was going to go home and read that book to her younger brothers and sisters. Check it out today. The last surviving dinosaur, the Tyrannosaurus, reminds readers to be mindful of when and how often they complain. And you know, that's a lesson that could really come in handy during this quarantine, don't you think? The Last Surviving Dinosaur by Stephen Joseph is available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many other sites where books are sold. Joining us on the line right now from right outside of Philadelphia in the beautiful state of Pennsylvania. She is the author of My Sister's Super Skills. Please welcome to the show, Lauren Mosbach. Lauren, how are you?
I'm great. Happy to be here. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Lauren and I have been dealing with some technical issues here, probably due to the fact that the whole world is in quarantine. They're working together to flatten the curve and staying indoors, but we're now approaching the 3rd week or the 4th week, depending on where you are. So technology is becoming strained. I have a feeling that a lot of people's patience is becoming strained too. What do you think?
I think so. Yeah, I do. I think that, some parents are getting stressed out, and so kids are missing their friends, and just trying to, as a therapist, just encourage my families to reduce stress as much as they can and to focus on connection with their kids.
You're making a really important point, I think, that, we've been thrown into this. My wife is a teacher, and they had 1 day notice.
Right.
One day, the mayor of the city, who was going on and on, saying, no, we're not closing schools. Our kids need us. This is Boston. It's an inner city. 80% of the kids depend on us for their breakfast and their lunch. We just can't close. And then the next day, he came back and he said, yeah, I thought about it. And so school's going to be open on Monday, but then on Tuesday, we're not going to be open again until May. And so my wife,
Right.
My wife had 1 day to switch from being a teacher in a classroom for over 30 years to, for the very first time in her career, trying to teach online. And she's teaching kids with special needs who are in 1st and 2nd grade. And then those parents, the same thing, those parents, was suddenly thrust into this position where they were expected to teach their kids and to help, be a very big part of their kids' lives, and teaching their kids, and also entertaining their kids, and just being with their kids all day long. It's unprecedented occurrence in the history of human beings, I think.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. Absolutely. And I'm just trying to, with my own kids, I have 3 little ones of my own, and in between providing virtual therapy sessions and juggling the kids, I'm trying to utilize just really natural learning experiences with them. So, for example, like baking muffins. They're learning about colors and shapes and liquids and solids and reading. So you have a little science and math and reading, and then they're learning a life skill, and we're all having fun. So I think that, just trying our best to do things like that with our kids and focus on positivity and connecting with them, because we're all going to remember how we felt during this time and not how much work the kids got done.
I think that's a really important point. And I also love that you talked about doing something with your kids and the therapeutic benefits of that. We talk a lot here on the Reading with Your Kids podcast about the different benefits kids and families get from spending time reading together. But there's also some great benefits that we get from baking muffins together.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, you talked earlier about families kind of managing their stress, and you're somebody who advocates that parents kind of proactively manage stress. What does that mean?
Yeah, so to proactively manage our stress, it means to utilize certain wellness skills. So for example, practicing gratitude and being positive and going out on walks and taking deep breaths and things like that, or we can do to kind of get ahead of the stress, as opposed to just seeking out self-care when we are stressed out, which is more responding to stress reactively. So I definitely think that, when families practice some great, practicing gratitude together, what are we thankful for in our home and in the world? And let's go out and take some walks and do some, deep breaths, some yoga, and just kind of have fun. And then you just find that your stress, it's not there as much. And you don't have to, fall into this really severe anxiety or stressful moments, because you're kind of keeping things at bay with the great strategies you're doing with your family.
It makes perfect sense. And if you're thinking about it, if your kids are in the dance team, if your kids are on a sports team, they don't sit around and do nothing until the night before the dance recital or the night before the big game. Kids are constantly practicing their dance, their baseball, their soccer on an ongoing basis, and they're building up those skills. So it makes perfect sense that we just make these kind of calming, stress-reducing activities as part of our everyday lives, and then we're not trying to implement them when we're already pulling our hair out.
Exactly. Yeah. And, as a therapist, I see younger kids, but I also see teenagers, and a lot of teenagers who come in to therapy, they have developed these really negative coping skills. And, they didn't learn positive wellness strategies when they were younger. And they always tell me that when we learn these, or, I teach these to them and they learn these, that they wish that they had those, kind of along the way up until now. And so that is one of the reasons why I wrote a new children's book called My Sister's Super Skills, to help these young kids, not just the ones in my practice, but more kids, learn great skills that they can carry on, with them throughout life. And so yeah, I think it's really important to kind of be proactive in our, mental health, because we all experience struggles and we all need help. So I think just, learning these skills and skills that are easy to do, we can all practice them together is awesome. And, keeping stress under control.
Yeah, it is really important. And it's kind of a great kind of coincidence that, my sister's super skill. You wrote this book now at a time when it's really needed, that, we're all facing this once in a humanity experience, hopefully once in a humanity experience. But it's also, these are skills, like as you mentioned earlier, you're dealing with teens who didn't have these coping skills when they were younger, and now that they're teens, they're turning to some very negative and some very dangerous coping skills, and that includes, I'm thinking, probably substance abuse and self-harm and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Substance abuse, self-harm, suicide ideation, anxiety, those self-defeating negative thoughts, depression, and they're just, coping with them negatively. And it's really hard for them to, when they come into therapy, they can, they get help, but they're starting from scratch, and it can be a long, lengthy process, and it's not easy. And it's just so important. That's why I feel like, for kids to have these great skills and that social emotional, development kind of curriculum in their schools and all that, which more schools are doing now, which is so great to see. But I think it would be awesome for also, families and everyone to just kind of get on the same page and practice great strategies that really keeps all of us.
It makes perfect sense when again, going back to the sports analogy, all of us understand that, and it's actually to an extreme with a lot of families are like, I want my kid to get a college scholarship. They're going to start playing soccer when they're 3. That's on the extreme end, but they're recognizing that, hey, if I want my child to be able to perform at a certain level when they get to be in high school or college or as an adult, then a lot of the foundation has to be built when they're kids and when they're young. It's even more important that we give them these coping skills and help them start building a foundation of emotional skills when they're young, instead of, waiting to that emergency situation when the world is falling apart and giving it to them at that time.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more.
One of the things that I've often said, and I know, reading with your kids, it builds a vocabulary, helps them become better readers, helps them develop a love of reading and learning. But one of the things that I always talk about is that when we're reading with our kids and we're talking about the books that we're reading, we are beginning a conversation that can last a lifetime, and that if we want to talk to our kids about the tough issues like drug abuse and self-harm, that those conversations start when they're babies, and not necessarily talking about drugs, but talking about making healthy choices and talking about, building a healthy self-esteem and things like that. Am I off when I say that?
No, I think that you're spot on. I think that even reading to babies is it's shown to help their brain development, and then also that bonding and their understanding. It's really, communication with them. They might not know exactly what you're saying, but they understand that sitting there with you is important, and that they're building, communication and learning. They are learning, about images in the book and the words and the letters. And so I think that, when they're babies, it's great. And then kind of just continuing that with them, having that one-on-one time and carving that out with them is really important. And of course, I love reading books to kids that incorporate topics of kindness and expressing their emotions and empathy and self-esteem and, like some things that, I talk about in my book, My Sister's Super Skills. And then also just, they learn about having that healthy relationship by being one-on-one with you. So I think, you're absolutely spot on.
And I love that you've created My Sister's Super Skills, because it sounds like it's a really natural way to start talking about some of these skills. What kind of skills will we learn as we're reading My Sister's Super Skills with our kids?
Yeah, well, from off the bat, they're learning about, their emotions and the importance of naming their feeling and expanding that emotional vocabulary. And then going on from there, the different skills that they need to learn to help them feel better. And so I tried to do this in a really fun way by connecting each skill with different animals. A horse taking horse breaths, a lion, to be like a lion and recall your unique strengths. so you have your positive self-talk and self-affirmations there. And then, of course, one of my favorites is gratitude, which helps us all, during difficult times, especially now. You kind of see how gratitude is playing a significant role in helping people manage the stress with everything, with the COVID-19. And, I talk about that. And then mindfulness is in there a little bit, self-care, and then just the benefits of friendship and laughter, and then forms of self-expression like art and writing and drawing, and how all of those great skills that it doesn't even really seem like, something like a skill or something. It just seems like, things that we all do that we enjoy, that we're having fun. And then you kind of think back and you're like, oh wait, that is kind of a coping skill or a strategy. And I like to call them super skills as opposed to coping. I think there's some, things that we should do all the time, and not just, not just when there's something wrong.
Absolutely. And I love that you put gratitude up at the top of that list. Because for me, I think that is so really, really important. And one of the things that I've always been, a glass half full guy, and to the point where I annoy people in my life so much. And to my niece the other day, I said something, we were talking about being stuck, and of course we were socially distancing ourselves, and it was very, very difficult not to give each other a hug, but
right.
The topic came up about something, and I'm like, oh yeah, but in the end it would be great and roses, and she just got disgusted and walked away from me. But I was really surprised that there's actually science behind that, showing that gratitude really can make a difference when we live gratefully. There's scientific evidence that we are healthier and both mentally and physically.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of research behind, the benefits of gratitude and mindfulness and even deep breathing and laughter. And when we practice, those skills, or those super skills, I guess you could call them, our brains release those feel-good chemicals. In counseling with the younger kids, I call them happy, the happy chemicals such as endorphins and dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and then when we practice those coping skills, or super skills on a daily basis, our brains do this awesome neural pathways from these new experiences. So our brains we are able to rewire them to respond better the next time we're stressed. And I think that's, so awesome.
And that really is important. I don't think it's, I think talking to our kids about, building different neural pathways, I think kids can get that, and so I think parents should not be afraid of exploring that and talking with their kids about that, because it is true. I know growing up, I heard all this stuff about, someone's 15, they're 25, they're 30, they can't change. That's just the way they are. They're just miserable, and that's not true.
Not true. Nope.
Yeah.
Having a growth mindset is more talked about nowadays, but we can all continue to learn and grow and get stronger and healthier and better till we're 100. So, yeah.
We've, at this point, when you and I are talking, we've been in quarantine for 25, I don't know how many days, but it's been a while.
Yeah. Right.
I'm imagining that a lot of families have already had discussions with their kids about COVID-19, what it is, but maybe not, or maybe kids are coming back with new questions. What's the best way to talk with our kids, not only about COVID-19, but about really kind of difficult, challenging, emotionally charged questions?
Yeah, I mean, I think that. I really think regardless of the age, and rather explore the facts together from a reputable website, such as the CDC or the WHO, and kind of, allowing and having that back and forth, that discussion, because the news oftentimes it's just one way, and then, a child might not have the opportunity to ask a question. And when you're doing it together, it's going to be, the kids will be able to understand a little bit more. And then also just most importantly, really, is to discuss the things that we are all doing that are keeping them safe and reassuring them that, by us all social distancing and washing our hands and, just seeing our family and friends through via Zoom sessions and all of that is what we need to do. And we're we're being proactive again and taking those necessary steps in order to flatten the curve. And I think just focusing on the positives is really important. I thankfully encounter that there hasn't been too much stress about the virus itself from kids. It seems like it's a more of the sadness and frustration about the indirect effects, like missing their friends and, missing out on birthday parties or spring break or different things they were really looking forward to. So I find, with them, it's the older kids, it's most important to just listen to, to what they have to say and kind of offer that support. And, we're all going through this together, the entire world. And, I think that seeing, that there are positives that, as much as there's grief and sadness with what's going on, we're seeing artists come out and storytellers and people just sharing their gifts with the world. And I think that's really important to acknowledge too.
And I love that you talked about going to reputable sources for information. I think that this could be really a really wonderful time to talk to our kids about digital literacy and understanding that, when you're hearing a news report, depending on, consider where you're getting your information from. The people who are putting news out there, they want more than just sharing news with you. They want people to watch them. They want to put eyeballs on their newscast. And so what that means most of the time is that they lead with the most outrageous part of the story, the scariest part of the story. And helping our kids understand that will help them be better, more informed digital citizens as this ends and as we go forward.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I think that it's really important, and we can, take this time as, an opportunity to have those discussions with our kids and to really talk to them about that and to explore things together. Like, well, let's really find the facts. Let's go to these websites and figure it out. And then maybe they're the ones to share the real facts with some of their friends and kind of start that trend too. So I think that this is a really great time to, do one-on-one, important things with our kids. Everything from, reading great books to baking to, talking about the news and finding reputable sources. Absolutely.
Yeah. You could talk about the news as you're baking and then continue the conversation as you're walking off the cupcakes.
Exactly. Yeah. Some self-care. Yeah. It's perfect.
Well, My Sister's Super Skills is a perfect book to add to your family's library. What a great a great book to read now. Books are still being delivered. I'm just curious, is My Sister's Super Skills, is it available as an ebook for like an instant download?
Currently, it is on Amazon. You can get it there. The hardback cover, there's still some available. And then also the ebook version is available. And then I've also been periodically setting that to free for families as we social distance to have some free resources that can be helpful. So definitely look for that, and hopefully that'll be able to help lots of families.
Yeah, absolutely. And where can folks go online to learn more about you?
To learn more about me, I have a couple websites. I have my author website. It's laurenmosbach.com. And then my counseling website is laurenmosbachcounseling.com. And then, from there, I have Instagram and Facebook pages that you can find via the websites.
We have had a really informative time today talking to the author of My Sister's Super Skills, Lauren Mosbach. Lauren, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thanks so much for spending time with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Vicki Fang. She'll be talking to us about Lyle and the Fox, a great STEM-related conversation. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, we would love to have you as a guest on Reading with Your Kids podcast. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic book. All you need to do is to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the contact button that you find at the bottom of the page and let us know about your great book. We will let you know the next easy steps. It's time for me to thank the people who made today's show so very wonderful. Of course, we want to thank our guest, Lauren Mosbach. I also want to thank my incredible team, including my amazing producer, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my awesome author, Ambassador Peggy Cotto. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. And, of course, we want to thank you, the most important member of our team. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Thank you so much for taking the time to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Stitcher Radio, Podchaser, Podbean, Podcast Addict, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. But most of all, thank you so much for being there for your kids and taking the time to read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.